Hello again. Um, excuse me. It's February 27th, 2022, Saturday. It's my second video today. I mentioned in my last video that I think I'm a walk-in. I've been questioning that anyway. I don't know for sure. And maybe after I tell you my story, you can help me determine if I am or not. So I'm just trying to get the lighting good here. So I didn't start out questioning if I was walking or not. Originally, I thought I was a MILAB, a military abductee. I've always had a memory, and I remember this very clearly when I was 5 years old, so I hadn't started school yet. And it's a very, very short experience that I had. I remember waking up and I was laying in my bed and I couldn't open my eyes. My eyes felt like they were glued shut. And then I realized that I couldn't move either. And, but I don't remember feeling any fear. I just thought it was very odd. Remember, I'm 5, okay? And then I remember hearing my name whispered in my ear. And just so you know, I changed my name back in 2004 legally. So the name I heard was not the name I use now. And after I heard my name whispered, I realized I could open my eyes. So I opened my eyes and I turned my head and I looked at the door that was the door between the room I was in and the room my parents were in. And we weren't upstairs in our bedrooms. We'd had some problems with the furnace and the walls in our rooms were molding. And we had to move out of our bedrooms and sleep downstairs. So I was in the playroom, my parents were in the living room, and I watched the door close ever so slowly, just like this. And I got up, and I went to the door, and I opened it, and it was pitch black in there. I mean, there was barely really, I think it was very, very early in the morning. I don't remember going back to sleep after that, but all I remember is hearing both of my parents snoring. Like I heard 2 different snores, and I thought, okay, so, and I did have a slight twinge of fear, like if it wasn't them, who was it? And at this point, we weren't aware that our house was haunted. I never had any issues when I lived there with the house being haunted. We didn't find out it was haunted till after we moved out, and the people that moved in were the ones who triggered all of the activity that started happening in that house. That's a whole nother story. But so the key elements of this were that I was frozen. I felt frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. And I know I heard my name whispered in my ear. So someone had been there. So back in 2015, I had come back from Hawaii. I was living with my mom and my stepdad a little bit north of here, and I stumbled upon Corey Good and David Wilcock. And I had never, I was aware of David Wilcock. I've since met him a few times. And, but this was, I hadn't really listened to any of his interviews. I hadn't read any of his books. My mom has his books, I believe. And he was interviewing Corey Good at Gaia, just up the road from me, a few miles away. And they were, it was when Corey was talking about being frozen, not being able to move. And I think it must have been, I don't know if it was when he got taken in a spacecraft to Mars or if it was when he went to inner Earth. However, that was the trigger for me to, was like, it immediately brought up my memory, because I've always wondered, what was that? What happened to me? And I've had channeled sessions with ET energy, namely the Arcturians, and I'm aware with the questions that I ask them that if I didn't ask the right questions, they're not going to tell me pertinent information that may not be necessary for me to know at that time. So I think that's why, if I am truly a walk-in, why they hadn't said anything, because I asked, what happened? Well, apparently that was about an agreement that I made ahead of incarnating into this body, that I would allow the Greys to harvest my eggs to help them get back on track so that they can repopulate, because apparently what they've done in their past, well, they're coming into their past, which is us, like in our time, because they basically genetically modified themselves into extinction. Basically, that's what they did. So I agreed to help them get to a point where they can again procreate. So they're creating hybrids with humans, and we're a hybrid of ourselves. I think that's what all the junk DNA is. That scientists don't really know what it is, so they label it as junk. I'm telling you, people, think for yourselves. Those people don't really know that much more than the average Joe about life and how things work and everything. Like, the more I find out, the more I realize how I don't know as a human being. I know that on a spiritual level, and when I fully wake up and realize who I am and all the lifetimes I've had and all that, I will know more than my ego does. And just know, every time you teach yourself something new, you're teaching your ego. You're not teaching your soul anything. Your soul knows everything already. That's why we're told all the time to go within and ask our questions and get our answers, rather than looking out here to other people to tell us what we want to know. Because our soul is something we're always connected to. What's not always true, as in an arrow meeting its mark, is our alignment with that source, right? With that soul energy. So anyway, oh God, I got off track. Going back to, all right, so Corey Good and David. So for the longest time, in fact, I embarrassed myself. David Wilcock came to Boulder to play at a church in a jazz concert. He plays jazz drums. And I got to meet him after and just kind of vomit my thoughts about being in my lab to him. And then I met him a couple of times in Alfalfa's, which is now closed, but I got to meet Elizabeth after they'd just gotten married. And anyway, so for quite a while, I've thought, all right, maybe I was a military abductee, and I wanted to attach all this nonsense to it, really. But now, after listening to actually quite a few people on YouTube through New Earth One, the New Earth One. I think that's the YouTube handle. New Earth One, and yeah, it's NEO anyway. They've got quite a series going here on YouTube of interviews, interviewees, workshops, all that kind of stuff. If you want to dabble, if you haven't, dabble in the spiritual side of things, the esoteric, the metaphysical side, the true reality that we come from. I'd highly suggest you watch some of those. But anyway, so it's some of these people who've talked about walk-ins. Oh, and New Realities also. Alan Steinfeld. He has had quite a few interviewees. He's constantly doing uploading videos and doing interviews and Zoom calls and things like this in tandem with Neil Gower of Portal to Ascension. All three of those are great resources for just about anything you want to get into that's outside of the norm, where people usually keep their comfort zone. Yeah, some of that will be outside the comfort zone, but it's also interesting too. Like, anyway, so I can't remember his name. I wish I had his name, and he, I think, was interviewed. Oh, I can't remember. I want to say it was Alan on New Realities. I remember he lives in Orlando, Florida, and he goes to Disney World to work on people. And I think a lot of times us light workers, we're not always aware of when we're doing work. How we're balancing energy, how just being in the presence of other people helps them. That's what he does. And I think his emotionality about it comes from knowing what goes on at those places where there's a lot of kids. Anyway, so it was listening to him and his description of being a walk-in. And also, oh my God, this guy that I know, Jaden Fox, he's in Thailand now, but he used to be on the Big Island in Leilani. And I think he probably left Big Island because I think the house he was in Leilani probably got taken over by the lava. So, but he was talking about a walk-in, his walk-in experience in 2011, and how to find yourself after something like that happens. So, to go back to myself, and a few days ago, I got some insight that it was like, oh my God. So I realized that throughout my life, I pick up bits and pieces of information. They're like puzzle pieces. And then sometimes 20, 30 years later, I'll find where that piece goes. And this is kind of like one of those moments. So back when I was 2 years old, I was on the back of my father's bicycle. And, back in '68, they didn't have seats like they do now. What I was told was that my dad, they taught me to hold my legs out, right, while I'm on the back of the bike so that my foot doesn't get caught in spokes. But that's exactly what happened. My dad said, okay, we're going to stop. So I put my legs down, and it was too soon. And I want to say my left leg got caught in the spokes and twisted, and it cracked the tibia of my left leg. So probably, I want to say 15 years ago or so, I did some work for this guy named Howard. I don't remember what his last name is, but he had his own gig going with metaphysical stuff, I didn't agree with everything. I actually went out to California, went out and came back the same day to go meet him to see if I wanted to work with him, and I decided not to. There was a few inconsistencies with his stuff that I just wasn't comfortable with. So anyway, but one of the things that he told me, um, one of the things that drew me in was finding the order of your gifts. So first, I'm very empathic, but I'm more emotionally empathic. Very intuitive. So there's clairsentience, just knowing, right? You just know, and you know that you know. There's no doubt. Clairaudience, all the clairs, clear hearing, clear sight. So it was through that work that he also told me that I came in with like 7 guides or something like that, and there was one guide that was specifically attached to my left leg, and it was all this kind of hit me a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh my God, if I am, that must be when it happened, because usually when walk-ins happen, my mom and my stepdad actually had a friend, and that I got to meet. Her name was Mari. She lived in Denver. She was from a Russian family, I believe, and she had had walk-in after walk-in after walk-in happen. And she was always aware of it happening, but her personality just completely shifted, like sometimes night and day. And she gained a lot of weight. Anyway, there has not been anything like that for me. And knowing Drunvalo's story, Drunvalo Melchizedek, as being a walk-in, the being that was in that body before he took it over, he talked with that being for 9 years to prepare him for the moment that being was going to breathe out and Drunvalo was going to breathe in. And it happened in a car accident. And they drove through the accident, and this happened. So the accident didn't actually happen. If it had happened, the body would have died, right? So that was the whole point, was to skip several years and growing up and come into this body that was going to be lost, and to take it over in agreement with, okay, well, with the being that's in it, you're going to leave anyway. So anyway, so I think there's different ways that walk-ins happen, and maybe there's contracts or agreements that happen ahead of time. Like that could be my case. When I first heard about Drunvalo's story, I thought, there's part of me that thinks, okay, this is how it happens. Like, that's the only way it happens, right? And I think that's it's assumptions like that we frequently buy into, that we don't even realize that we're doing, that trip us up later when we fail to realize, oh yeah, there's so many ways of doing things, of so many paths to take, right? And I think that's why we have to refrain from judging ourselves and use that gift of discernment as it's meant to be used. Anyway, I'm going off on another tangent. Yeah, like, I don't know what it's going to change, knowing if I'm a walk-in or not. I think it would help to explain a few things. It's kind of like knowing if the earth is flat or not, right? What's it going to change if it is? Which I can tell you unequivocally, it's not. Sacred geometry wouldn't work the way it does if the earth were flat. Anyway, probably should have left that part out, but whatever. Yeah, I think it would just resolve some not knowing, like not knowing how to interpret some events in my life. So that would be helpful, sure. And maybe that's part of my own awakening is to realize that I'm not the original occupant of this body. Um, and maybe that's why I feel the disconnection I do with my mom. Like, oh God, I don't know what to do about my mom. I had a long conversation with my stepdad today about her. But basically, how that connects to my story is that I don't know if it's because of what my mom's going through physically right now. Like, I had to move in with them for a while to help take care of my mom because she couldn't get out of bed. She still can't get out of bed. And there's other things going on that I have no clue how to interpret. Otherwise, she seems healthy. Most of the time, she's upbeat. But anyway, I still feel this disconnection from her that, well, I don't know, maybe it's just become more pronounced. I don't know that I ever really felt that emotionally connected to my mom because my mom was the abuser growing up. And I've since resolved all that. But all I remember growing up is just wanting to please my mom so she could stop being a bitch. So she could just be happy. So I don't, and I think I feel this. I have felt this sense of duty. Maybe not really obligation as being her child. Like I'm the one who has to take care of her because there is no one else really. Well, her husband's taking care of her right now, but I felt this sense of duty, like from deep down, like from who I really am, not a sense from ego, to step in and do what we did for her to get her to where she is now. But now, that even that's kind of dissipated. Like I've done what I can, and I'm trying to link everything that I'm feeling, not everything, but just what I'm feeling. Like what feels out of place, and trying to attach it to me being a walk-in as a way of trying to explain how I feel in certain situations. Like, honestly, I think that's part of why I am so comfortable being by myself, why I can be alone and love it. Love just being in my own energy. Love not having other people and their shit around me. I'm talking their emotional shit that they carry around with them all the time. Because it's all coming up right now, right? It's not just coming up for me to deal with. Everybody's stuff is coming up. So, not to go off on a tangent, but yeah, so I'm curious, like, how many people out there have similar experiences? Like there's other stuff I could go into too, like the channeling I did of Gaia, Jesus, and Merlin in that order while on an acid trip that my friend was there present for to witness. And I don't think she had her own trip. She was in my trip with me at the end. I think I know that I answered a call from Gaia. That became very clear back in 2013 when I went on that acid trip when I channeled her. I was getting a reminder from both her and Jesus of the task isn't the right word. The mission that I agreed to in coming and answering that call. And it made me very upset at the time. And I still don't even have clear details as to what that is. But, you know, like I think that is connected. And the fact that on December 21st of 2012, I was the only one that didn't get kicked out of Kalalau Valley. Well, no, Justin was still in there too, and probably a few other people. But that trip, oh my God, that whole trip was so divinely guided, like all the way, everything. I just saw it over and over, everything that I did. Well, with the exception of first getting in there with just energy bars. Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I got in there and I had to let my body recuperate for 2 days before I could hike back out and get real food. You want to read about that? I have the whole story written down on my blog, which is Ascension, ASCENSION through THROUGH duality DUALITY .blogspot.com. And it's actually the featured blog if you go over to the right. It's the picture where I'm got my head shaved and I'm standing there with my 2 friends the day that I took off and went on that trip. It was very, very powerful, and that I think was the reason why I got guided to have that trip with Rebecca in Kihei on Maui in 2013, because that is when, at the end of that trip, I stood up, I said, I am the one. And I felt all this energy. I just felt all this energy coming through my heart chakra. And for what felt like a week, I walked around like a zombie. Took all the metal out of my body, got rid of my earrings. I stopped eating with metal utensils, and I still use my bamboo to this day to eat with. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if anybody's even going to watch this, but if you do and you've had a similar experience, please make your own video or leave some comments below, or tell me what you think. And if you're going to be rude, you can just keep it to yourself, because if you write something down that is clearly offensive, I realize it's up to me how I take things. But if you write something that's clearly out of line, I'm going to delete it, so don't even bother. But anyway, I think that's probably most of it, if not all of my stories. So I hope you have a great day, and maybe I'll see you again.